The year-end bonus hour CEO repeated it 3 times at the town hall. 30,000. Locked. I believed him, even pre-booked round-trip flights and upgraded medical insurance for my parents in Chicago. On payday, a bank notification popped up. $3,000 deposited into my account that morning. I stared at my phone for a full 10 minutes, checking the account 3 times. There was no mistake, no delay, no hidden pending transaction waiting to correct itself. I walked into the finance office, and she didn't even look up once. "That's what the system shows," she said, her tone flat, mechanical, completely detached. I told her the amount was wrong, that it didn't match what was promised. "You can escalate through HR or legal if you want," she replied without emotion. "Fine." I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just turned around and left. I submitted my resignation to HR, calm, precise, no explanation attached. Less than 20 minutes later, my phone rang with an incoming call. It was the CEO, Lucas Grant. His voice carried irritation, controlled but unmistakable. "Emily, what is this?" "I approved a $300,000 retention bonus for you." I paused for a second, just long enough for silence to settle between us. "Then you should ask finance what I actually received," I said, steady and cold. There was silence on the other end, not confusion calculation. Something had already shifted. "My name is Emily Carter, head of data architecture at Phoenix Systems in Chicago. Over the past year, my risk models prevented over $20 million in projected losses. But inside the system, I was just another data point, replaceable, adjustable, easy to overwrite. The next day, I was summoned to an emergency town hall meeting. The title displayed on the agenda: Compensation Transparency Review. The moment I walked in, I knew something was wrong. Hundreds of employees filled the room, and the main screen was already lit. It felt less like a meeting and more like a trial already in motion. CFO Daniel Brooks stood on stage, composed, sharp, completely in control of the narrative. "Let's address the concern raised by Emily Carter," he said, voice smooth, authoritative. The room fell silent as he clicked the remote in his hand. A bank record appeared on the screen for everyone to see. Account name, Emily Carter. Amount, $300,000, completed. "According to our records, the payment has been processed successfully," he stated. Whispers spread instantly across the room. Some people laughed quietly under their breath. Others opened Slack, already typing, already forming opinions before hearing anything else. Within seconds, internal channels flooded with comments and reactions. "300K and still complaining? Entitled much? Trying to double dip?" I stood in the last row, frozen in place under hundreds of judging eyes. "That's not my account," I said, my voice steady but not loud. Daniel looked at me like I had already lost control of myself. "The name matches." "The payment cleared," he replied without hesitation. The room shifted against me. The narrative had already taken shape. That was the first layer of pressure, public opinion forming instantly, without evidence. Slack screenshots spread rapidly, gaining likes, reinforcing the accusation. Every word I spoke was dismissed as an excuse, not a defense. That was the second layer interpretation turning into collective judgment. Daniel continued, his tone tightening just enough to introduce weight. "If necessary, this could escalate into a compensation fraud investigation." The word fraud dropped like ice into the room, heavy and irreversible. If that label stuck, my entire career would collapse instantly. That was the third layer legal threat, designed to silence resistance. HR Director Susan Hill stood up, her posture rigid, her expression unreadable. "We may initiate a formal compliance review," she said, not looking at me once. "Access to internal systems may be suspended during the investigation." Everyone understood what that meant: complete isolation, professional erasure. That was the fourth layer: systematic removal of credibility and access. Then my manager, Mark, spoke, his tone calm, almost sympathetic. Emily has been frustrated about compensation recently, he added. That was the moment everything became clear. This wasn't a mistake. This was a constructed narrative, carefully layered, designed to collapse me publicly. That was the fifth layer character framing, turning context into evidence against me. I stood there, surrounded by eyes, cameras, assumptions already finalized. I could feel myself on the edge of breaking under the weight of it. And then suddenly, I went completely calm. I looked again at the so-called bank record on the screen. Then I smiled, just slightly, enough to disrupt the rhythm in the room. Daniel, can we pull up the transaction routing details? I asked. He frowned. Why? Because this isn't a corporate disbursement, I said clearly. The room went silent. The tech team hesitated, then brought up the routing data. I pointed at the screen, steady, precise, surgical. Corporate bonuses go through batch payroll systems, ACH, company entity, structured metadata. I paused, letting the information settle before delivering the break. Not a personal wire transfer, I added. The air shifted instantly. That was the first reversal. People started murmuring again, but differently, this time uncertainty replacing certainty. Daniel's expression changed, just enough to reveal the crack. I continued, pressing forward without hesitation. And this memo line says consulting fee. I looked directly at him. Since when does Finex label retention bonuses as consulting payments? Silence. Real silence. The kind that fractures authority. I stepped closer to the stage, closing the distance deliberately. Let's go further, I said, pointing to the sender information. Sender Daniel Brooks. The room exploded. People stood up, phones raised, recording everything. That was the public exposure, the moment the narrative collapsed in front of everyone. I looked at him, unblinking. So this wasn't the company paying me? This was you wiring money to an account with my name? And then using that to claim I'd already been paid? His hand trembled slightly. He took a step back, but I wasn't done yet. I pulled out my phone and played the recording. The finance office voices filled the room, clear and undeniable. Split it. System shows full. Silence. Absolute silence. That was the second reversal evidence replacing accusation entirely. Just when it seemed over, the head of back-end systems spoke up. We found something else, he said, voice tight with tension. The original approval log. It was modified. My chest tightened slightly. By whom? I asked. He stared at the screen for a second too long. Board level override, he said finally. The room froze, completely. I slowly turned my head toward the board seats. The CEO didn't speak. He didn't deny it either. That was when I understood. Daniel wasn't the source. He was just the execution layer of a much higher decision. The real decision to turn 300,000 into 3,000 had been made by someone sitting far above him from the very beginning. I turned off the recording and placed my resignation letter on the stage. I didn't explain anything else. I didn't need to. This time, no one tried to stop me. But everyone watched me leave, as if seeing something for the first time. In the system, you're not falsely accused. You're simply chosen.